dancing pole.
There you go.
There we
I
go.
got you.
Yeah, it'd be ugly though with me.
A little bit, yeah. Cool. So we got Attorney Jeff Cohen, board certified healthcare attorney, health law attorney.
Yep.
Legally Exhausted podcast. You're my attorney for my MRI centers. When I need advice, we call you and you give us consultations and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I thought it'd be great because a lot of doctors watch this podcast, and I thought it'd be great for them to meet you, listen to your story, and find out more about you. So you're a lawyer. You're in Florida.
Yep.
Tell me how you became a lawyer. What was your origin story, superhero origin story?
Right. Well, I'm glad you're asking. So you know how maybe you were in high school and you remember these kids, they knew what they wanted to do and they had kind of a straight path and they were on it. Mm-hmm. And they were, they were better students than you. They were better athletes than you. They were just had this.
So everyone.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. That's not me.
Okay.
I was the other kid.
Okay.
I was the other kid who least likely to become anything.
Wow.
One of those kids.
Okay.
So I had no idea what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to college for a year right after high school and did the proper thing, which is I just, kind of just about failed out. Mm. And I then kind of wandered around and did whatever made sense for the next few years, which included all kinds of stuff, traveling, hitchhiking around, working on a farm, working in restaurants, working with dually diagnosed people, working with schizophrenics. I mean, there was just a whole bunch of stories. And at some point, I realized, I was 21, and I realized, I'd been out of college for a few years. I didn't finish, and I realized I got to go become something. One of those moments. And literally, I'm in a house shared by a few guys in Arizona. I've got a dog and a bedroll and very few possessions because I was that kid that didn't need anything, didn't want anything. And I'll be 62 in 2 days.
Wow.
So,
happy birthday, man.
Thank you, man. So, but I was just this kind of wandering around guy. Mm-hmm. And I realized, boy, I need to get up. I need to go do something. I'm 21 years old. And I knew that meant going back to college. So I went back to college. I figured I was going to be a writer because I liked writing and I couldn't get anything published. And then I found out by getting into the creative writing program why. I sucked. I was a horrible writer. I was awful. I'm in the class with these folks at Florida State. And man, the way they spoke and what they wrote, I was like, 2 weeks into it, I'm like, this is not me.
Yeah.
So
that was law school for me. I realized I studied 24, 48, a bazillion hours, and I got a B, maybe a C plus. And these guys showed up drunk, hungover, took the test, aced it, and I'm just like dumbfounded. So I know what you're talking about.
Unbelievable.
I never felt stupid in my life until I looked at the ranking of law students and was like, wait, I'm not in the top 10 or 20. I'm like at the middle. What the hell?
I know.
So it's tough. Yeah.
I was in Florida State and I was in the creative writing program, but pulled myself out because I suck so bad. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get a degree. And it turned into an an American Studies major with an African American Studies minor because I had this amazing professor, Bill Jones, who was, I wanted to take any class that he was teaching, and it happened to be in the African American Studies department. And I ended up with this kind of literature, economics, history kind of degree.
Okay.
And when I'm zeroing in on the end of that, I went to a presentation by Jack Healy, who was running Amnesty International, and he did this presentation on campus, and he made a comment that all of the people that work for Amnesty International went to law school. They were lawyers. I'd never met a lawyer. I had no idea what lawyers did. And on the spot, I said, well, I guess I'll apply and see if I get into law school. Mm-hmm. So I took the LSAT, got into Florida State.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what led you from Arizona to FSU?
I'm from Miami originally.
Yeah, baby.
Yep.
Kendall. I was born in Kendall.
No kidding. I went to Palmetto.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, I mean, born and raised in Miami, and I couldn't wait to leave Miami. It was just jammed in.
Really?
And, you know, that whole Dixie Highway thing, you know, my world kind of revolved around, it went from like Coral Reef Elementary School up to Dadeland and then down into the Keys because we were always fishing and diving down in the Keys. Yeah. And we had a great time. But I hated the congestion, so I needed to get out.
Okay.
So when I was looking for colleges, I found a place that had two criteria, the two most important criteria. A, they were far away. B, they were warm. And that was it.
No.
Arizona. That was
girls,
it. No, because I figured they'd be
education.
there. No, absolutely not. I needed to be comfortable and far away from my mom and dad. That's what I needed.
Okay.
So I went to Arizona, and I was ill prepared. I'm like, I hate school. I hate academics. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
So I quit after a year. Yeah.
And then you end up back at FSU.
3 years later. Yeah. FSU law school.
And then you went to law, so you're a double null.
I'm a double null. Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
But I was a semi-null because, and I'll tell you why. Because I ended up at Florida State, and I had no idea what Seminole was.
Oh.
I didn't know. So I'm wandering around for some period of time, and I don't know. You know, I got to tell you something. You'll appreciate this, given that you're an injury guy. I funded my education through an injury.
Oh, through a personal injury case?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. I was in a car accident when I was 22 years old. It's so funny. I didn't even think to tell you this.
Wow.
I'm 22 years old. I'm on my way to go get newspapers because I delivered newspapers in the morning. Wow. And then I worked for my dad in his pharmacy during the day, and then at night I would wait tables. So I'm going to get the newspapers, and this guy blew through a stop sign, and I went right into him at about 4:30 in the morning, and destroyed my knee, broke my head, my hand, all of that. And I got a settlement that allowed me to pay for most of undergrad and all of law school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty,
and so I was grateful for it. I mean, but I'm literally on campus for about a year walking around with a walker and then crutches. And
Jeez.
Then,
wow.
And then trying to get to learn to walk again.
Man,
Yep.
that's crazy.
Yep.
Did you lose consciousness? Did they diagnose you with any kind? You said you banged your head really hard. Did they diagnose you with any kind of like? They probably weren't back then, like TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, nothing.
No, nothing like that back then.
Yeah.
I just remember being in the ER, and then all of a sudden blood started shooting out, so they had to clamp it.
Ooh.
Yeah, in my head in the ER, and I remember it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Eesh.
Yeah.
You get that out of your head.
It was one of those moments. Yeah.
Wow. So you go to law school. When did you, after you graduated, when did you go down this path of health law?
Yeah. About 2 years after practicing. Okay. I got out of law school. I really still didn't know what lawyers did, and I figured, well, I'm an outgoing guy, so I should be a trial lawyer. So I got a job in Tampa with a law firm that did trial work. They were
trial, I mean personal injury, or are you talking about
insurance defense, actually.
Okay.
So I'm with that firm, and I'm just trying to get experience, whatever. And I hated it. Mm-hmm. So I did the next logical thing, which is find another firm and do the same kind of thing, but more on the business side, non-compete issues and litigation. And I hated it so bad that I had like the minus touch. Like everything I touched turned to shit. Mm. And I was miserable. I just, I hate it. It was like, it seemed to be like one pointless fight after another. I didn't feel very connected to it. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I was married at the time, and very quickly after I got married, my wife said she was pregnant, so I was like miserable with my work and thinking, I got to find something else to do with this law degree. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so I remembered being an intern in the House of Representatives in the HRS committee.
Oh, nice.
And all the health-related stuff, and I loved it.
Okay.
So I began to look for work as a lawyer in some healthcare-centric thing, and that landed me as the number 2 guy with the Florida Medical Association at the time that John Thrasher was general counsel.
Oh, cool. So you started, that's how you started that path, is with the Florida Medical?
That's right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I loved it. I couldn't believe I got paid to be there.
I know. I started doing PIP suits for a firm, and then I went out on my own This was like 2009. No one was hiring. Everyone thought the world was gonna,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Armageddon. There's no more money.
I
Whatever.
like that.
And so
I like that you did that at a time when people are saying, "Oh no, don't do anything."
I was too stupid not to know what was going on. I didn't know anything, and I didn't need anything. It was just me and no kids and a wife, so it was just an easy decision. I had no choice actually, but no one wanted to hire me, and I had $100,000 in debt. But I started doing PIP suits, and now we represent hundreds, if not 1,000, medical providers over the years.
Right.
We do PIP suits, but one thing that I'm doing, which I don't know if you do any of this in your practice, is helping the doctors when like State Farm and Geico want to sue the doctors, working out some type of an agreement either to avoid the lawsuit or settle it quickly. So do you guys do anything like that, like civil RICO cases by the insurance companies?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
we do.
Okay, cool. Do you guys litigate those?
We do.
Oh, okay. I don't litigate them. I don't want to litigate them. They're probably
sticky
a
mess.
major headache. Yeah,
it's a sticky mess. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know this from dealing with us, but the only clients of our firm, the Florida Healthcare Law Firm, is their healthcare businesses and healthcare professionals. Mm-hmm. And when people hear that, they usually think, "Oh, MedMal." No, not really MedMal. It's everything else that they need: buying something, selling something, leasing something, employing somebody, taking on partners. It could be representing hospitals, doing all the contracts and all the compliance that they need, making sure that they're kickback statute compliant, START compliant, all their policies and procedures, and handling basically everything that healthcare businesses need. The only thing we don't do is immigration.
Okay,
yeah.
Immigration for like medical
for bringing
professionals.
on new hires. Okay. Yeah, we don't deal with that. But
okay,
but everything else. Whether it's a lab, pharmacy, a medical practice, chiropractic business. We do a lot of medical integrations for chiropractors and then represent them doing all kinds of stuff, whether it's regenerative medicine, import, or IV therapy or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. So you guys, if someone's a doctor and they need a contract, they need legal advice related to the practice of medicine, that's you guys.
That's us. Form a practice, make a super group, bring in a partner, bring in an owner, bring in an employee, deal with a hospital recruitment package. Mm-hmm. That's what we do. We do all of the regulatory, all of the contractual work.
Okay. And
they got a lease. They want to buy real estate. We have somebody who does that.
Even leases. Wow. Yep. And you'd mentioned Stark. So you guys do a lot of Stark, self-referrals.
Kickback, Patient Brokering Act.
Okay.
Marketing agreements, medical director agreements. A lot of those things became kind of front and center for law enforcement at the state and federal level.
Yeah. So awesome news. And so you guys have how many attorneys at your practice?
There's 10 of us.
10 of you guys, and statewide, or they're mostly based in a particular region? Are they nationwide? Is this a nationwide practice?
I'd say about 80% of what we do is Florida.
Okay.
So from Panhandle to the Keys, and then the other 20% is around the country. So we've got one client in every state, and then we got multiple clients that are regional.
Okay, and you guys represent everybody from big hospital groups to mom and pop doctors, nurse practitioners, everybody.
Right. Could be a startup, and all they need is corporate formation or the corporate documents and reviewing a lease and negotiating a lease. Could be that, or it could be a proton center with nonprofit funding that's a $90 million project that involves interacting with not just a hospital, but a hospital system out of corporate. So it could be that.
Okay. Or an amazing MRI center called Tesla MRI.
There you
go. Booming.
That's right. Represent
cool.
a bunch of imaging centers and things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you brought these 2 books.
I did. Yeah.
Can you tell? They're gifts for me.
They are.
You didn't mean to promote them, but I want you to promote them because I want to know about them. I'm going to read them. Are you on audible.com?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah,
one
of them is.
Awesome. Okay,
one of them
cool.
is.
I love Audible. Awesome.
Yeah, so the first one that I wrote, I don't know how long ago, it was maybe 5 years ago, The Wolf That Wins.
Okay.
And, when we were talking about that kind of...
that on the camera there.
That story of how I became and, the high school thing and all that, that's basically the story of growing up.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wrote it because I thought, you know what? A bunch of guys probably wish they had somebody telling the story of stumbling around, trying to figure stuff out and learn and grow up.
Right.
So that's why I wrote that book.
Cool.
And that's what it is. And that one is on Audible.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right. And then what's this one right here?
This one's called The Next 50 Feet. I wrote this because I wrote this with the woman who runs everything, and she's basically my partner in everything, Autumn Galgano. I wrote it with her. We wanted to tell the story of how we became a law firm that knew what they were doing. From basically, I had no background in business. She had no background in business. I never thought I was going to start a law firm ever until I did. I had zero qualifications for it, I think, no training for it. And we just kind of, failed our way to success.
Yeah.
And we wanted to write something that was funny and had some good information in it so that people, not just lawyers and law firms, but physicians, can understand what we learned in creating a personal services business. Because a lot of the lessons, as you know, from creating your own firm, what you learned is really translatable into pretty much any personal services business, whether it's physicians or accounting or law or what have you. But we wrote that because it was fun and because we thought it would be helpful to other people.
Cool. Yeah, I actually met you through Autumn. She
No
came
kidding.
here. Your office is 10 minutes down the road.
Yep.
She came here one day when we first opened up at this location and somehow met her. I don't know. She just dropped off her stuff. And then maybe she figured that we represent doctors. Maybe we could cross-refer people, whatever. I don't know. And years later, then I got in the MRI business, and I needed you guys. And I was like, well, I know Jeff. I'm going to go over there. So
Right down the street.
went down the street, and then, now we have the 3 locations, and we're growing. So awesome. Yeah, I actually met her. I haven't seen her in years, but I email her every now and then, and she helps set this up, so she's great. Trying to think. There was something I read on here. She actually mentioned to me that she helped you with the practice and getting organized, and I think she mentioned I remember what I was going to tell you now. Sorry. Your guys' blogs are a phenomenal source of information, whether it was about doctors and durable medical equipment, home medical equipment, and whether they need a license or not. That license, I know they just changed the law like a year ago about it, but there's just a wealth of information on your blog, and you guys have really good like search engine stuff pops up when you type questions. Your stuff pops up a lot. But that was another way that I've kind of stayed in touch with you, is I'll be Googling legal questions, and I'll be like, oh, this is a great source. Board certified health lawyer. Who wouldn't want that information? So awesome. You guys do have a great content on your website.
Thank you. Thank you. It's tricky words on websites. What we found is that people don't like to read very much. So when we started, we just had a ton of information. And I think any business person, whether it's lawyers like us or physicians, you're like, what do you do with this website thing? And, we've kind of stumbled around that and had a lot of steps and starts on the thing. And we originally had a ton of words on it. And we realized there's something about how you organize it and how user-friendly it is and what people want to read versus what they want to hear. So we started doing a bunch of, podcasts or recordings. So
cool.
It's just easier for people.
We're doing right now. We're doing a lot of YouTube. I was going to start my own platform called the what were we, Injury Law Masters thing. And it was going to be like a master's program for injury law for whether you're a lawyer or a doctor. All the different tools you could think of in one spot, and you can go. And then I was like, this is going to be a pain in the butt to like update it and all that. So we just put in a lot of it on YouTube now. And it's working out pretty well to just get the content out there because people want to learn and they don't want to read. So if you're talking, they'll listen.
Right.
So
that's right.
That's
they're
the first thing I
driving.
asked you, Audible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, do you probably find that physicians, they want to know how do they do more personal injury type work? And they don't know how to get into a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, guidance, that kind of storytelling is going to be good for them.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to, especially law, it can be really boring.
Yeah.
Legal stuff is just super boring. You got all these big words.
Right.
I was reading these civil RICO lawsuits that State Farm and Geico file, and they have all these like big words in there. I'm like, shit, I don't even know how to pronounce that word.
Right.
Like, hopefully I'm not going to read it on the video because I don't know how to pronounce it, but it can be pretty boring. So cool. I'm trying to think what else. So tell me about, you mentioned that you have a side business with the IV therapy.
Right.
Is that local here in Florida, or is it a nationwide venture?
The IV thing is AVA, American IV Association, and it's national.
Okay.
So we just started it, and I'm trying to think the website. I think it's www.americaniv.com.
Okay.
I think that's it.
We'll find it. We'll plug it in the video.
Anyway, what we realized was, you were telling the story about the bus and trying to retrofit it for IV. Well, in the past, I don't know, year, the number of calls that we're getting from people that are starting IV businesses just went through the roof. And we realized, because we're guiding them and telling them what they need and, helping them get things set right, we realized that there needed to be a resource, a one-stop resource for people in the IV industry. So we created it. It's called AVA, American IV Association.
Cool. That's awesome. They can sign up, become members, learn.
That's right. Education,
standards,
training,
what to do
business training, legal resources, everything, supplies, everything. One stop.
Okay. That's
because otherwise what they got to do is they got to call one guy and then another guy and then another guy, and they have to string it all together.
Yeah.
And so we figured, why don't we just make it easy for them, do a one-stop shop. They can buy whatever they want to buy, but make everything available to them that they might need. Professional liability insurance, legal guidance, business advice, tax advice, supplies, everything.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. My buddy Chris, he's like I guess you'd call him the plug. He gets you whatever you want. Chris, we call him Valet Chris if he's watching.
Nice.
He has a friend who will come by and do IV therapy at your house.
Yep.
And when COVID hit, I think I got like a sore throat and I freaked out. And I was like, I need you, dude. Come over. Not a bad business. I think it's like $200-300 they charge to come to your house.
Oh, yeah. And then you can get add-ons, glutathione and BPC 157, NAD, all kinds of stuff that they'll throw in the bag that really improve whatever you're there for. It's immune boosting, can be immune boosting, reduce inflammation, and of course hydration, which are all things that everybody needs help with.
Yeah. That was scary when COVID hit, and he just can't. Perfect service comes right to the house, and I think he's working on a mobile. That guy's working on a mobile platform as well, where he can.
It's amazing to see. It's funny. I was having dinner with a client of mine, and he was in the surgery center space, so used to very expensive, very technical, high tech healthcare solutions, and he owned a bunch of them, and he sold them. And we were having dinner, and he said, "Hey, so what's the next biggest, best thing in healthcare?" And I said, you're going to hate me. He said, why? I said, because the biggest next emerging thing in healthcare, it's not expensive, it's not complicated, it's not very high tech at all. Said, what is it? I said, it's IV. It's IV. Yeah. It's people getting bags and going to your house or your office, or you get and drive down the street to one, and you get plugged in, and you get fixed. That's it.
Yeah.
And he was not impressed. He was grateful for the reporting, but he's like, I could tell he's like, there's nothing really cool in that. But I think it's cool because as a consumer, I get those things. I like those things. I value them. They really help. Yes, when you were getting sick.
Yeah, I've been to the bio station. If
Yeah.
I get a cough or something, I go over there and they'll give me an IV for whatever.
That's
They
right.
have little bags, big bags.
Yeah, man.
Depending on how much time you have to be there.
Yep. Real
Beautiful,
helpful.
beautiful nurses over there.
Yes,
all
they are.
phenomenally beautiful.
Yes.
My wife goes with me sometimes. I'm not being weird. I'm like, babe, they're all 10s here.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've been there. The other guy comes by the house. They'll do a bunch of stuff, but it's zero entry fee. It's very cheap to get into that space.
That's right.
And then there's nothing really proprietary about it.
Nope.
So
And the skill set is not neurosurgery.
yeah. These guys are good though. They poke you one time. They don't poke you 5 times like when you're
right.
giving blood work. But
Right.
yeah. So I don't know if you could make something like a proprietary blend to make it
I think it's hard. In fact, I don't think it's doable from a legal perspective because the stuff they put in it, it's basically a banana bag with add-ons. So it's a vitamin bag with add-ons. You might add some more reconstituted vitamin C or, peptides that people throw in. But is there anything protectionable from an IP perspective? I don't think so. I don't think so.
cool. We'll get an IP guy on here next.
That's right. It's like, how do you make that even more valuable?
Yeah. Because then you might have like everyone wants that thing, that brand or whatever,
Special sauce.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Nike or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But cool. Any other? What do you do for fun?
Yeah, I like to fight. I like hand-to-hand combat training.
Really?
I do, and I like gun training where I run around with it, do a bunch of tactical stuff. I like to fish.
Cool.
Love traveling. So all those things are
Favorite
fun.
place to travel?
Right now, anywhere that isn't in Delray Beach, and is friendly from a COVID perspective, like they're not on lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bar is low at this point. I mean, I've been home. People who were locked in their house because of COVID. Mm-hmm. I've been locked in my house and in my life because, the rest of the world isn't as open as it needs to be for me to just pop around. But it will be. It's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely happening.
Yeah.
We've been lucky in a sense that we've been in Florida because I know a lot of places are
kidding.
hardcore lockdown. But if you think the East Coast is like lockdown friendly, if you went to Fort Myers, Naples, and you wore a mask in the height of the pandemic, I'm talking about within the first 30 days of COVID and the lockdowns,
right?
They looked at you like you were an asshole.
Is that
to
right?
Wear a mask, and I'm
West
like,
Coast?
yeah, and I go to Fort Myers every week, and I'm just like, what? I'm like, I'm wearing a mask. Nobody's wearing a mask, and I'm just like, you guys know there's a pandemic going on. They're like, nah, screw you, man. What's wrong with you? You weak or something? I'm like, it's got to do with anything. But
I know.
But I hear, like, I don't like wearing a mask, and as soon as everyone was like, no mask, I was happy to throw out the mask.
Me too.
I just got back from Colombia. We have an office overseas in Colombia, and it's like
cool,
outsourced, cheaper labor, really hardworking people. And so I was just there, and the funny thing at the airport is you get into the airport, no mask needed. You go past the security checkpoint, you have to go buy a mask, put on a mask. It's a surgical mask, which is probably not, it's not an N95 where they lock out all these particles.
Right.
You put it on, the security guards, half of them have their mask around their chin.
Right.
And then once you go through, no more mask again needed. And I'm like, what a waste of this is. And I'm kind of an environmentalist. I like scuba diving.
Yeah.
I hate when I'm scuba diving and I see beer bottles, Coke cans, plastic everywhere. And I'm just thinking in my head, all the litter from all these masks that people
everywhere.
don't need.
Yeah.
And it's like, for instance, reusable mask.
Uh-huh.
I wore a reusable mask every day for like a week, which is probably gross, but I only wore it when I needed it. People just they prefer these disposable masks. It drives me crazy because in 5 years, I'm going to be scuba diving and they're all going to be swimming there with me like fish.
They're in the parking lots now.
Yeah. And gloves.
Yeah. The gloves and I'm like, it's strange. And people just take them off and dump them by their car.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Or they wear them all day.
Right.
It's like you'd be better off washing your hands.
Exactly.
I don't understand people, but
no, either do I.
Yeah,
I don't
people
either.
are weird, but
yeah, fortunately, I didn't have any health issues that made me especially sensitive to it.
Right.
But we're using common sense.
Yeah.
How's that?
And I agree with you. Just to clarify, so we don't get like canceled out there.
Right.
I don't have any health issues. If somebody had a health issue, I'm okay with that. You can do what you want. I just don't want to be forced to do stuff. And
I feel the same way.
Especially like after the first couple months, it was like, all right, like I did my part. I did my time, man.
I feel the same way. We're in an office. It's we had 10 lawyers in there, and during that time, it was like, okay, here's the office policy, the official policy. We're all adults. We all know how to exercise judgment. Use your best judgment. Do what you think is right. Mm-hmm. That's the policy.
Yeah,
that's it.
And no screaming at people for not doing what you want them to do.
Bingo. We live in such a weird time where if you don't think what I think, then you're wrong and I'm right and I'm good and you're bad and it's nonsense. And I don't want any part of it.
Yeah. So you like traveling.
Yeah, man.
Where should I travel to? One place in the world I got to go. Recommendations.
I'll tell you, I have to say that the two favorite places that I've been, Spain, from Madrid north. I was spending most of my time in God, I'm drawing a blank, just north of Madrid, Segovia.
Okay.
Segovia. Beautiful people, beautiful, unbelievable food. The country's gorgeous, so friendly, wonderful place to be. Loved it. And then Costa Rica blew me away.
Yeah, I've been to Costa Rica once.
Yeah, I went to around Arenal, the volcano, and then in Monteverde, the rainforest, and could not get away with how beautiful it was. The people were great. The food was great. It was just easy traveling. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
My wife brought me along. Her girlfriends all sold her out. She had some yoga retreat place that she went to. It was all vegan food, and it was pretty cool. It was up in the mountains somewhere. I don't even remember. I think the airport. Do you know the name of the airport that the city's in?
I don't remember.
Oh, but
it's
San Jose.
San Jose.
It's like right near there. It was great. No cell phones allowed in the resort, and no internet. And it was pretty cool. It was fun. We stayed for like a long weekend.
It's a cool place.
Yeah, it was really
the
cool.
Rainforest. I remember walking through and howler monkeys and sloths and all kinds of stuff.
Was that in? There's like a hotel. There's like a hotel in the rainforest in a mountain.
No,
is that where you stayed?
No, we stayed across the street from it.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And then they have those little they look like thin raccoons, and they're really friendly to people because they want to get fed.
Oh.
And they all run over to you, and it's cool.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Trying to think. What is your most impactful case that you did that you feel a real sense of accomplishment, whether it was a litigation or a transactional type of event? What type of case would you say is most impactful for you?
The ones two of them come to mind right away, and they both have this in common. There's a huge element of righting a wrong. As a lawyer, people maybe think that lawyers are all about justice. And I think that there is an element of that in the mindset of most people that become lawyers. They want to help, tend to be very helpful. And they tend to have a very strong about right and wrong idea about justice. And for me, that's a big thing. But the opportunity to be involved in something that's all about righting a wrong or justice, it comes along infrequently. In one case, there was a surgeon who was targeted by the Office of Inspector General for committing an anti-dumping, an EMTALA violation. And I remember looking at it. He brought it to a lawyer, and a lawyer gave like a 3-page response to the OIG. And the OIG said, yeah, clear case of EMTALA violation.
And just to, for the viewers, patient dumping, EMTALA, EMTA,
That's right.
Was a law that was created in the 60s or 70s to prevent hospitals from dumping people that didn't have insurance or ability to pay.
That's right.
So this is an orthopedic surgeon?
No, different kind of surgeon.
Oh, okay.
So he's in the ER, catches the patient, and there's this allegation that he, did the wrong thing and violated that law.
Okay.
And a lawyer that he paid to represent him, gave a little response, a few page response, and OIG was absolutely, resistant to backing off. They wanted the full fine, which at the time was $50,000.
Wow.
And they wanted, basically that'd be a mark on his record, which would trigger the Board of Medicine going in and doing an investigation. Now he's got to deal with that. And then possibly, because the patient died, possibly there'd be a med mal suit that he'd have to deal with as well. So I saw it, and I'm like, I'm listening to him. I don't know what I think. And so I go through his records, brings a whole stack, and I see there's absolutely no violation whatsoever. I mean, none. Mm-hmm. It's not arguable. It's not like I can make the best out of something bad. No, there's no violation at all. And I'm scratching my head, and I'm like, I don't understand this. So he pays me a lot of money to prepare a thorough, correct response with documentation to support it. And it's some 30-page kind of response with documentation to support it, with a notebook to show the OIG they got it wrong this time. This time, it's just there's no support for it. I get a phone call from the lawyer from the OIG. They say, we still think it's a classic EMTALA violation. And we want to know, just offer anything, which is code when you're talking to a prosecutor like that. Code for, we realize we have a shit case, but we need a win. We need a little W in our column. People don't understand that a lot of folks in law enforcement, whether it's the DOJ or the OIG or anything like that, they get advanced and they get bonus based on wins and monies collected. So there's an incentive to win. And some of them, certainly not all of them, but some of them don't seem to care whether there's any real justice in the win. Mm-hmm. They just want the win. Mm-hmm. So this particular prosecutor said to me, just offer us something. And I said, it's not my money, so I can't tell you what the client's going to decide to do. But I'm going to advise the client to pay not one penny. Not one penny.
Yeah.
So I got the client on the phone, and I said, look, here's what she said. And he thought about it for a minute. He said, well, how much would it cost me to go to hearing? I said, conservatively, it's $100,000. It's a trial. And I'm going to need an expert, and I'm going to need all kinds of documentation to support it. And he said, I'm in. I'm paying the whole thing. So I went back to her and I said, you remember our conversation? Yep. Yeah, he's going to pay nothing. Nothing at all. Mm-hmm. She said, okay. And they went away. Did they ever say, hey, we're not going to prosecute the guy any further? No. Mm-hmm. Did they ever say, hey, congratulations, you win? No. Mm-hmm. They just stopped pursuing it.
Wow.
The second case I had was a guy who was accused by the Palm Beach County Sober Home Task Force, which is
all over the news every other month for the last 5 years, 10 years. Yeah.
And he was accused of substantial wrongdoing. And when he came to me, I looked at the case, and I could find no support for the wrongdoing at all. And so we got very actively involved in supporting this guy. And, frankly, we did it for free because we believed in him and we believed in the need for justice to enter into what was otherwise a prosecutorial frenzy. It was like everybody's a bad guy and everybody's a criminal and we have to prosecute everybody. It was just overkill. It's like shooting a cockroach with a shotgun. And that's what was going on at the time.
Even right now, somebody tells me, "Oh, I work at a sober home. I own a sober home." I'm like, get away from me. You're probably being watched right now. I don't want any heat. Leave me alone.
Exactly. And they just, went at it. And by the way, it was only one county in the entire state that did that. So if people were doing some of the things that they were, prosecuted for in another county, there is no violation. Now, some of the things that, in fairness to the Palm Beach County Sober Home Task Force, some of the things they went after were really bad guy shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, somebody was prostituting out people in treatment. It was just awful.
Yeah, I saw about that. Yeah.
But the vast majority of the people in that business, They are people who come from recovery themselves, most of them, and they wanted to do good and help people, period. Did they also want to make money? Absolutely. And did some of them do wrong? Absolutely. But the reaction was this overreaction to the entire industry. And this guy ended up being acquitted on multiple charges. And he, he had the resources to fight it. And being involved in that was incredibly fulfilling.
Do you bring a certain clout with your board certification? Because not many lawyers are board certified in the state of Florida. Do you feel that just having that board certification brings a certain level of I'm right? Like
sometimes. I think as a general rule, yeah, because we represent so many people that understand this concept of board certification. Because they're board certified themselves and they understand you have to work a little bit more, you have to prove a little bit more. And so I think it's relevant and attractive to people that understand about board certification to begin with. And then if I'm doing expert witness work or I'm having a conversation in a certain environment, like I'm representing somebody in front of a law enforcement agency or OIG or Justice Department or what have you, it seems to matter.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of people that masquerade as, I do healthcare law, but they don't have a board certification. They advertise for 30 different things that are not healthcare law.
Right.
And you're just like, I don't know if I want to trust you with this important legal matter because I want someone who's a specialist in that. It's like we do personal injury. We advertise. You go to our website, it's like personal injury. Right. Somebody asked me about wills and trusts. I'm not going to say, I'll do that. That's not our specialty. I'll send them somewhere else. So I feel like having you on my team at the MRI Center, on any medical professionals team, just adds a certain level of clout. Like, hey, I know I got the right guy. He's advising me. He's telling me what I need to do. If the government or an insurance company says I'm doing something wrong, you got to talk to my guy first because he wouldn't steer me wrong. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like everything else, whether it's medicine or law. It's too complicated and too difficult and too dynamic to try and occupy more than one lane.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a hand surgeon, that's your jam, and you're a board-certified hand surgeon. If you're a chiropractor, that's what you do. If you're a lawyer, you have a ticket to do all kinds of stuff, and some guys do, and maybe some of them do it well. Maybe you can do a few things, and that's great. My experience is, after 35 years of doing what I do, it's all I can do. It changes like every hour and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, healthcare law is one of the most dynamic, gray-ridden areas of the law, meaning, in real estate, tends to be black and white. That law doesn't seem to change very rapidly or very, very frequently. Same thing with estate and trust work. But in healthcare law, usually the business-wise answer is not clearly yes or clearly no. It's here are options that are light gray. I mean, I always tell people, listen, if your lawyer doesn't do this protocol, then they're not doing the job. And here's the protocol. I'm going to show you the laws, the options, and the risks of each option.
Okay.
Laws, options, risk. If they don't go through that, they're not doing the job. And in fact, inexperienced people, you probably see this too, are just inclined to say no because there's no risk with saying no.
Right.
But there's no help to the client. You have to stick your neck out. You have to help them look at the options, evaluate the one that will work for them.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. A lot of people view lawyers as a no person.
Right.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And I've got some friends that's the first thing they do. I tell them, oh, man, I'm opening this business overseas. We're going to have virtual assistants. It's going to be a data secure environment. And their first thing is, did you do this? Did you do that? Did you check that? You can't do this. And I'm like, oh, my God, like the weight of it. And so I think a lot of people don't go to lawyers and consult with them because they're worried they're going to be told no. So why do I need to bother? And then healthcare
Right.
fraud task force is at their door and they're calling you. What do I do? And so I always recommend, especially anything healthcare related, to consult with someone who's board certified, such as yourself, and get the advice early on, because later on it's going to cost them 10 times that amount.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of headache, divorce, bankruptcy.
Brutal.
It can be really bad.
There was this one client who went to their neighbor. The client was a healthcare business, and I think they bought the healthcare business for like $1 million.
Wow,
$1 million is what it cost them to buy it. And the guy went to his neighbor, a lawyer, and said, "Hey, do me a favor and draw up this marketing agreement for us." The lawyer, not a healthcare lawyer, drew up a marketing agreement. And the short story is the Justice Department got a hold of it, prosecuted it. The settlement, to avoid going to jail, $6 million.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was kind of curious. It's like, how'd you decide to use the lawyer? He's my neighbor. Like, okay. Just curious, what did he charge you to make that agreement? $1,500.
Right.
And I found out, because I was involved in the case, and I said, that healthcare is like super regulated, like how you pay marketers and what you pay marketers and things like the anti-kickback statute and safe harbors, Stark laws, Patient Brokering Act. You know about those things because he's got a healthcare business. Why would you use somebody that's not his thing? Mm-hmm. And he said he just counted on the guy to be able to make that decision. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the lawyer's a good guy, but he made a terrible mistake. Mm.
Yeah, that's tough. Can't really sue your neighbor for legal malpractice.
No,
that's going to be awkward.
But they did.
Oh, they did.
Yes, they did.
They'd be well to do that because that's a lot of
$6 million. Yeah, $6 million to stay out of jail.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. Are you allowed to talk about? I don't know if you worked on that case. So if you say,
I did.
No, on a different case. The guy relied on his lawyer. Is this the same case? The guy relied on his lawyer's opinion. He was here in Palm Beach County. He relied on the opinion, and the judge said that's not a defense.
That's right.
Is that this case?
It's a different case.
It's a different case.
I know which one you're talking about.
Were you involved on that one or not? Oh, you were?
I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about how you feel about that ruling? Or
yeah, I mean, there was this law in Palm Beach County, in Florida, called the Patient Brokering Act. And the way that clients would approach lawyers on that topic would be, before I enter into this business arrangement, can you tell me whether it complies with Florida law? And so you'll look at it and you'll advise the client. And then they might say, and they did, many of them, can you give me a written legal opinion, which, by the way, costs a lot of money, on that law, so that I can rely on it and then go about my business and do the business and avoid being prosecuted? Absolutely. So lawyers would write these opinion letters on that issue. When these cases got, one of them in particular, actually two of them, got to the Palm Beach County court, the judge in one of the cases said, the fact that you got legal opinion, paid for it, and then followed the advice is not admissible in the case.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And I can tell you, without exception, there isn't a healthcare lawyer that's been practicing for any period of time that could have ever predicted that outcome. That there'd be a law, you get guidance, you follow it, and then the fact that you got guidance and followed it, which would normally give you what's called an advice of counsel defense, is not admissible. So what did you pay for the advice for? I mean, and it was appalling to me. The bar never got involved in the case. The bar should have been active. They should have, they could have appeared as amicus. The criminal defense bar should have appeared as amicus. We couldn't get any interest in the case. And in my opinion, the judge made a very, very dangerous ruling.
Do you know, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it, but was that lawyer board certified in healthcare law, or was he, you're not, or do you know?
Yep. The short answer is yes.
It was.
So
Wow.
the lawyers that advised in the case, some of them, actually, there were a couple cases. Some of them were. One of them was not. He was a real estate lawyer.
Because that makes a big difference to me. That's not in the
Yeah.
newspaper.
Right.
But the case is, defense counsel relying on the opinion letter from counsel
Right.
Was the issue. But they don't specify, well, if it's a real estate lawyer, I'd say, but a healthcare attorney, I would say that's a big deal because
Yeah.
if I'm going to you for an opinion letter, I want to know that what I'm doing is not going to get me into trouble and be able to rely on that and say that. So
I agree.
that's a big deal.
I agree. In fact, there were healthcare lawyers involved in both cases.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. That's a big difference for me because the way the news spins it is he got a letter from his attorney and they don't specify any specialty area.
Nope.
Which to me makes all the difference in the world in a heavily regulated context like sober homes, health insurance, Medicare. We don't take Medicare at my MRI center because I don't want anything to do with Medicare. First of all, I don't know how people do $50 million in fraud on Medicare. I billed for 20 patients, 20 MRI scans, never paid me. And then these guys are doing $50 million in fraud in 3 months, pack up, ship, move to a different place, do it again. And I can't get paid on 20 scans. I'm still waiting. Whoever is over at CMS, I want my money.
You know, and the truth is that the media is kind of complicit in how those stories get told. In my opinion, in my experience with that, they would talk to the prosecution, they get that perspective, they report that story. They would never look for another story. So, for example, in the addiction treatment space, the story was these horrible fraudsters billed $3,000 to $5,000 for a piss cup, a POCT, a point of care testing, which was absolutely lacking in medical necessity. And shame on them for bilking the insurance companies out of tens of millions of dollars. That's the story. What happened was totally different. A POCT, a piss test cup that you can get from CVS is very cheap, and it has a certain degree of accuracy. Or you can use something called an LCMS, which is about an $800,000 machine that really breaks down the contents of the urine and gives you a very specific report, which, by the way, was necessary at certain stages of treatment for people that were looking for help from addiction. And then those guys, when they would submit the claims to the insurance companies for reimbursement for this very expensive test, the insurance companies set the fee themselves. They're the ones who decided what to pay. So the insurance companies paid a lot of money and then claimed that they were a victim. And when these guys went back to them and said, listen, put us in network, we'll agree to some reasonable fee. You know what the insurance company said? No, we don't want you to be in network. They only wanted to work with Quest and some of the other big labs.
Okay.
So, you know, the media didn't want the story. They just wanted a story.
Right.
And they just went to the prosecution to get that perspective, which is relevant, but it's not the whole story.
Right. I see that a lot on these clawback affirmative action cases with the insurance company, the PIP insurance companies suing the doctors. And they say, oh, this was bad, this was bad, this was bad. And one of the lawsuits was against an MRI center, publicly traded MRI center, and it said most of the MRIs are medically unnecessary, but an MRI center just fills the script. They get a script for a cervical MRI, they do it. They said most of these car accidents are low-speed accidents. That doesn't matter. There's nothing on the script that says it was a low-speed accident. And just a lot of different things that they put in there to kind of spin and change the way people perceive the clinics, the MRI centers, and the doctors involved. And it's kind of like a publicity war between the personal injury lawyers. They want to make them look bad so that if they go to trial, the jury is biased towards the personal injury lawyers.
Absolutely.
And the insurance company is your good neighbor and they're your best friend. And then until you're in a situation where you need to get compensated fairly, you just want to get compensated fairly. You don't want to get overpaid. You just want to get paid fairly. And they're like, not today.
You know, and then every now and then I'm surprised. Like we recently had a case with a chiropractor who was they were requiring a bunch of money back for
that was a great segue with the ambulance in the audio.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. I think Dennis is running these audios for us. But yeah, I mean, so this guy comes to us because the insurance company wants a bunch of money back that they paid to the chiropractor. And we were able to show, look, what you think was done wrong isn't as bad as you think it is. And they listened, and we, put everything in writing and did everything right. And they cut down the ask by 2/3. And then they said, the remaining amount that you owe us, we'll take it out of future services. So they made it easier on the client. In my opinion, they did the right thing. And I was surprised.
Right.
But, every now and then you'll get a good adjuster or you'll get a good investigator in the SIU, the Special Investigative Units, and you have their attention. You're being very transparent and very communicative and very thorough. And a lot of these guys are really, really smart, and they want to do the right thing. So,
cool.
Yeah, it was a cool outcome.
It is cool, yeah. I'm doing one of those right now, and we'll see how it goes. They're alleging a straw ownership issue, but they don't have, from what they told me, they just had a statement from an employee that, that's the boss's office. So,
yeah.
I don't know if that's enough here. That's kind of weak sauce. Yeah.
Might need more.
Yeah, so there's probably some other facts out there that they don't want to disclose.
Right.
But, we haven't gotten to that sit-down meeting yet. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. What else do you want to talk about, man? This is your hour. This is your time. Anything?
The folks that listen to your podcast are mostly physicians, right? Yeah. So I think you're hitting all the important things.
Yeah. So you guys are here in, you have a couple locations, but your main office, your headquarters here in Delray.
We have our primary location is in Delray Beach. We're opening a second physical office in Tampa because one of our key guys, Chase Howard, is going to be moving there. Just had a kid, and so he wants to move over there with family. So we'll have 3 or 4 lawyers over there, and then we've got about 8 lawyers over here. And again, we take care of the entire state of Florida. It's weird how law has become primarily a phone and a computer.
Yeah.
Very weird. I mean, during COVID, you're doing hearings from the waist up on video, right?
Yeah.
Super
I just
weird.
did a hearing in Columbia. I was in Columbia. I just shut the door, and I was like, hey, can you guys just be quiet? And I put on a tie, jacket, wearing jeans, and I did my Zoom thing. I never told anybody, hey, I'm overseas. It was an hour difference, and I was on time.
It's so different now.
Yeah.
Randy Goldberg is one of our litigators. Great guy, terrific lawyer. And he'll literally come out of his office with shorts and a shirt and tie. And I know he's working.
Yeah.
So
these are good days for lawyers because
the
only thing is you're probably more accessible than you were 10, 20 years ago. The facade of, I can't call my lawyer on his phone is kind of dying down.
Well, that's done.
And it's hard now. You got to be available, and so
you got to be responsive. You know, and that's one of my pet peeves about lawyers. Well, 2 of them. One is they don't respond.
Yeah,
like you don't call back somebody within 24 hours. You don't respond to an email that same day. How long does that take?
Yeah,
it's amazing, right?
Yeah, except we probably got a million emails to get back to.
We do. Yeah.
So awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Enjoyed it.
We're going to put your contact info up here so people can contact you if they want to.
Cool.
And thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you, Bubba.
Cool. Thank you, man. Thanks. That's cool.